And welcome back. We are continuing our season of Building Better Foundations. This is the Building Better Developers podcast, also known as Developreneur. We are in part two of an interview. We're going to be speaking with Angelo again here in a few moments. But first, I'm going to introduce myself and let somebody else introduce themselves. Little cliffhanger there for you. My name is Rob Broadhead. I'm one of the founders of Developreneur, also the founder of RB Consulting, where we help you sift through your technology junk drawer and build a roadmap for success, leveraging technology and making it work for you instead of maybe even against you. Good things and bad things. A good thing would be, I have the tools that are out there to do our work are phenomenal these days. The things that it's funny how when I would think back to when I was starting out my career and how slow and ponderous some of the compilers and things were and how long it took to deal with them. And it's you could go have a whole meal before you got back and your code was actually compiled so you could test your latest changes. Versus now, you can test entire applications in a day, basically, with some of the tools that are out there. So loving that. The downside, bad things is there are just not enough hours in the day still, because with the ability to do more, there is more that I want to do. And it just seems like the desire to do more is constantly outpacing the ability to get some stuff done. But right now I'm going to pause. I'm going to go get some stuff done while Michael introduces himself.
Hey everyone, my name is Michael Malaj. I'm one of the co-founders of Developreneur. I'm also the founder of Vision QA, where we create and test custom software that solves your problems. Good thing, bad thing. Good thing, similar to Rob, there's so much out there helping us improve on our jobs and businesses. When we're recording this, it's nearing the end of the year. There's some new updates to some of the versions of Java Spring Boot that just got released, and I'm going to be digging into those. Downside, similar to Rob, the more these tools speed things up, the more we want to do, and we still just run out of time to get stuff done.
Yeah, life is it's just the more things change, the more they stay the same. The more it's just yep, I still just don't have enough time to get the crap done. Whenever we're more productive, but now we just put more on our plate to get done. But right now, we're going to take a few things off of our plate, mostly the stepping into the next portion of this interview. And here we go, back to our conversation with Angelo. I do want to, shift a little, because you've been doing this for quite a while. You've been doing development, and now, even though you've gotten out of it, how do you see, especially because now you've been through, I think, a couple of the game-changing moments of things that have apps have come out since you started, and before that it was there's the web it's what it was, and then you had the applications, and you've had now the latest is obviously AI has become a big part of development, but even you can go back a few years and the code generators basically came back. So a lot of IDs, a lot of tools were already, even before AI was kicking in, we're doing a lot of that generation. So how do you see, especially this latest wave of, the latest silver bullet of AI, how do you see that, and how do you see it impacting your development teams and moving forward?
I think it's helpful. I think that it can make developers a lot more efficient, but it's also a very powerful tool that if you're not an experienced developer, it can actually cause more harm than good. Yeah, I posted we've got a few chat groups with our business, and then someone sent me a little meme or something like that where I think it was where Cursor by accident dropped this vibe coders database, and for those of you who don't know what drop means, it basically deleted the whole database and recreated it. And he asked Cursor did you just delete my database? And Chris was like, yes, I'm sorry, I had to delete it because of the database changes, but I'm sorry, what I should have done is I should have asked you, do you want me to drop the database and recreate it? And so it's powerful. They really are powerful, these tools, but you really need to kind of know what you're doing. But it can definitely make you more efficient, and it learns your coding style, and it can, obviously auto completion, as you mentioned, has been in the IDEs for for a long time, but I think it's like even more powerful now, like with Cursor and other tools where it can do multiple auto completions in multiple files that aren't even open. But that's also where the danger can come in because you need to know what it's doing. Um, yeah, so I think it's a tool. You got to use it, you got to embrace it, but you also got to be wary of it. Where it's going to go in the future, I'm not exactly sure. Is it going to replace developers entirely? Possibly, but I think there's still a lot of value and experience in terms of dealing with people, what their ideas are, and sort of thinking and reading between the lines in terms of, okay, this is actually what they need, and this is how we need to build it, and this is what we need to consider for the future based on previous experience. So there's still that sort of human element of translating an idea into code and into a vision, but also making it scalable and robust and future-proof. So I think that's where there's the seniority plays a big role and experience, but maybe the sort of simpler tasks, will sort of be maybe a little bit more automated with AI and with code generation.
So along with the lines of AI these days, and like you said, having like senior developers in that, and leaning on the developers to help you build the applications from a founder's perspective. However, being a founder, if you aren't really technically inclined, how do you kind of structure that? How do you think through that to avoid wasting time, wasting money, and kind of like we started early on, building things that don't scale, that have too many features in it?
It's a good question. I think it's almost like building a house, right? You don't just start putting in a foundation and start putting up walls and windows and things like that. You actually start with an architect. So I think planning is still really, really important. Thinking about your product, scoping it out properly, defining it from a technical specification point of view, thinking about the different scenarios, the different user journeys, the different exceptions. And I think that is a very, very good step, but I think it's also overlooked. And I think people just want to build quickly, but then you kind of rush stuff and you haven't thought about, knock-on effects. So I think that the planning, scoping, specifying phase is really, really important. And because it's not so tangible, it's often undervalued. But I think that is key to the success of a project. And not only in the initial MVP, it's the key to the scaling, scalability, which I spoke about earlier in terms of scalability, in terms of features and in terms of data. So thinking about that up front, what is it going to look like in a few years' time? Are we going to have like multiple payment gateways, multiple payment options? Are we going to have multiple languages? Are we going to have a loyalty system? Is it going to be gamification? Great. If those are sort of things that we need to consider, let's make provision for them now. And then what does the data look like? Is it going to be like millions and millions of records? And at what point does the database slow down? At what point do we need to kind of archive data? How are we going to handle that? So again, that happens, ideally upfront as a best practice, but often, things need to get to market quickly, and that step is skipped by founders, or they just don't even know to do that. They just think you need to write the code. They don't even know to plan it, and it's almost like you need a systems analyst or a architect to kind of go, let's go to the drawing board first before let's write code. Because if you speak to a developer, they're probably just going to start writing code. They like that. Maybe senior ones will plan it a lot better.
So expanding on that just a little bit. So from a founder's perspective, I believe earlier you mentioned Lovable. What are some tools that a founder could use to help them wireframe besides just, writing it out on paper, or putting it on, a PowerPoint, something like that? What are some good tools that they could use to kind of build their idea or kind of wireframe their idea and get like clickable demos without having to really write code?
Yeah. So obviously you've got things like Figma, but you need to be you've got to need some design skills for that. I think there's a platform called Reloom. I speak under correction, which basically allows you to kind of prompt and create wireframes that can become clickable prototypes. We haven't done that much work with it. We just played around with it. But I think that's sort of something that a non-tech founder could use to create some screens, some user journeys, some process flows, some clickable prototypes, and then use that as a base to design and build the rest of the product.
Oh, those are some very good examples. Just one other follow-up here to that even. So when dealing with founders, and I've run into this over the years, and kind of curious what your experience is. When you have an idea and you are like, hey, I want to solve this problem. Yes, you can just go out and try to look for that problem on the internet. Are there any focused approaches that you could offer our listeners to help them kind of narrow their focus on how to do product marketing to determine if their idea is a good for a mobile app?
Answer that in a slightly different way. So where we've seen a lot of success and also just speaking to other, dev houses and other tech founders, I think there's a lot more success when someone comes from a certain industry and they know that industry sort of inside and outside. They've been in the industry for many years and they've seen a niche or a niche, a problem, and they've seen it over and over again, and it's not getting solved, and then they create a solution around that, as opposed to me going, well, I think that the restaurant industry has got this problem, and it's my hypothesis and my theory. And then now I need to go and validate it. I think that's quite difficult. I mean, it's not to say it's not possible, but I think you have a lot more success where the founders are from that industry, whereas they're kind of trying to solve problems for an industry that they're not based in. I mean, keen to hear your takes on that and your experiences on that. I don't know if you have any, but yeah, maybe it's contradictory to mine.
That's actually kind of funny because I was working with a founder, a visionary a couple of years ago, and that was one of the things he wanted to do. He's like, "Oh, I want to go build this restaurant POS system for restaurants." He had never owned a restaurant, never worked in a restaurant, and really had no idea what the software was needed for. He just had this idea, and he wanted to spend money and time building this, and it was like, time out. It's like, go do a little more market research on that. And then other people I've worked with, like you said, that have been in the industry and have figured out, hey, this is a problem. How do I solve it? Tend to do better. So that was just kind of funny that you used a similar example of something I actually ran into.
Out of interest, did he go ahead with that or not?
No, eventually I finally talked them out of that because they were not going to be very successful with that. It was more like a clouds in the sky idea, and it's like you don't have enough money or time or resources, and it's not going to go anywhere.
Yeah, and that's where their ego comes in, right? Because they believe that they're right and they want to, they want to pursue it. And I think you save them a lot of money and pain, right, through talking them out of it. But Rob, from your side, do you have any, Kitty, if you've got any examples of this or any experiences like this?
Yeah, I guess I tend to fall into two categories what I've experienced is there's the ones that are somebody that's an outsider that sees something and like, it would be like in a restaurant and they're like, oh, I see this problem. I can go solve this because, I can get food to the table faster or whatever it happens to be. They see something, but they haven't really lived it. They're just like, they have a problem. It's something that's an issue they have, but they haven't really experienced from the inside. And it may be that there are solutions for that, especially these days. There's a lot of times that they'll say like, oh, there's got to be, I'm going to go build this product. And once you start looking, you realize that product actually exists, a dozen different ways because it's actually a common problem and people have solved it. They just didn't know it because they're not part of that, that industry. They're not on the inside. The ones that I find are far more successful, I think, like you do, is that the ones that have been, the problem comes out of being within that industry, actually spending time and realizing that, they've got a special problem or something like that that just hasn't been addressed. Or if it's been addressed, it hasn't been addressed very well. Good example is a lot of times I've seen in the healthcare industry where there are applications to solutions that are sort of general purpose. They solve for a lot of places, but they don't solve maybe for a specific type, like a specialist, like maybe like a podiatrist has something that's a little bit different. Or like I know that there's a lot of people that think that healthcare and dental are the same thing, but dental records and all the stuff they track and how they do stuff is very different from other specialists. And then of course hospitals are very different from clinics. And so I find that it's a lot of times I want to talk to them when I'm talking to somebody with an idea like that. It's like, where did this come from? How'd you come about the problem itself? How do you see that? How often have you seen it? Because it may be specific to them. It may be something that's like, wow, that's a horrible problem. And as you talk through it, you realize that they're the only person that ever is going to, suffer with that problem. Or it's so niche that it's just like, that's going to be tough for you to do, especially if it's an expensive solution. It's like, all right, if you're solving things for only a few people and those people aren't rich and aren't willing to spend a ton of money, then you're probably not going to go very well with it. And I found that like this goes back to I love doing like proof of concepts and clickable demos and very minimal MVPs and things like that to say like, let's get this out and get it in front of people that aren't like your best friend or your family. They're like, oh, I love it, it's great, and get it in front of people, particularly those that have like they've got skin in the game, where it's like, hey, let's get something out there and see, will they pay some money for it? Would they, what would you pay for this? So you can start figuring out, is this real or is it just a nice to have or something like that. I love what you said earlier is like, what happens? Is there going to be some sort of pain if you give them this application or this solution and you take it away? Because I think that's a really good marker. Is it's like, okay, that means that they were there was some discomfort caused by that solution not being there.
On it essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to sort of switch gears a little bit on this too, is that because you do web and application, and I'm curious as what your experience in doing web applications and apps, and where you like, I guess the biggest struggle in particularly when you try to do a hybrid kind of thing where there's a web solution and there's a mobile, particularly, I mean, sometimes mobile native, then you just got completely separate code bases. But I'm thinking more of the kinds where you're trying to do that hybrid approach, and some of the issues, particularly for developers, that they may want to keep an eye out for when you're trying to solve for both of those platforms.
Yeah, I think it's maybe I can answer this in a little bit of a different way. I think, with founders, it's like they'll come to us and they'll say, listen, I want a mobile app. And you're like, well, why do you want a mobile app? No, no, I love apps. My competitor's got an app. And then we're like, yeah, sure, okay, that's maybe a semi-good reason, but the point is you want to get something out to market quickly. You want to get it, this MVP, we spoke about this many times. And generally web is easier and quicker to build for, right? So it's nicer on the budget, on the wallet. You can get to market quicker, and you can, everyone's got a browser on your mobile phone, on your tablet, on your laptop or whatever. But not everyone wants to install an app, right? And then you've got as we spoke about in the beginning, like SEO versus kind of marketing within app stores is a big thing as well. And you've got to do a lot of different things or extra things with mobile apps. If you're going to do the store submissions, that takes a lot of time. Generally developing mobile apps, if it's a hybrid mobile app, compared to a web app, the functionality might be very similar, but it takes longer because of the nature of that development. You've got to do a lot of compiling, you've got to deploy it to an emulator or to devices or test flight, and that takes time and that costs money. And if you're just trying to prove product market fit, does this product that I'm building solve a problem? We generally say go web first, and then if you're getting traction, you can always go mobile app later. And I'll give an example. We built a big platform here in South Africa, and this client's been speaking to us for many, many years. So it's a web-based platform. And he kept on saying like, I want to do a mobile app, want to do a mobile app, but it's quite costly, it's not cheap, and there's a lot of things to consider, and there's a lot of development behind the scenes. And eventually his market, his user base is asking him, through social media, through direct engagement, like when you bring out a mobile app, I want the mobile app. And, it's come up so many times now that the time is right to do it, right? So then that makes sense, from a cost, from a traction, from a testing the market transitionary point of view. The other thing that, where you need a mobile app is where you need something specific on that mobile app, so maybe you need something specific to the hardware, where you can't get that through a web application or even a hybrid app. Um, that's less and less common now because even like hybrid apps are getting more and more access to the device's hardware. Um, but yeah, so that's another instance. And then there might be certain things you need to integrate with, like SDKs, that you can only do that through native, so that your only option is to go native, your only option is to go mobile app based. You can't build a web application based for that. And then another thing that people need to think about is the costs of these app stores. If you've got a subscription based or in-app payments, these app stores can take 20 to 30% of those payments, which a lot of founders don't even know about. They go the mobile app route, and then they find out the hard way that, hey, you're giving away a large margin of your income to the app stores. So that's something to think about as well. Yeah, so I've answered your question in a little bit of a roundabout way, but I think it's quite an important consideration, when you look at web versus mobile.
Now, when you do when you have something that's web, and now you come back, you say, all right, we're going to do a mobile application. Do you, or I guess more, what are your thoughts on the web application being treated, or the mobile application being treated almost like a second or a brand new application, so that you're not, because I'm definitely in the situations where they want to just like make the mobile app look like the web. But we know that once you get, there's real estate's different and all the kinds of other stuff on the screen that makes it very difficult a lot of times to try to just shrink the web down to, even with responsive design. There's like, it tends to be, I think there can be an argument definitely for just design the mobile application, especially the user interface, the UX, from ground up for mobile, as opposed to trying to pick it up from web. And what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that, trying to wrap a mobile version of the website or a responsive web-based version into a mobile app, I don't think it works so well. I think, you can even get penalized for that. And I think that mobile apps have got a different look and feel. They've got different usability. You typically got that bar at the bottom where you've got all your different buttons, but a mobile responsive website doesn't have that sort of usability, look and feel. So yeah, I agree. I think it should be its own project. I think it should be handled as its own code base, but also with its own interface and how users engage with it. And you got things like push notifications, which work really well on mobile apps, which, you do get push on web, but it's kind of very limited, and it's not, yeah, it's not really that well used. So I think again there that ties in with that whole usability of the mobile app.
So, kind of a final question, kind of flowing with all of that. Um, what are some of the hybrid tools you like to use to build your web applications? There's so many out there. What are kind of your favorite flavors?
Yeah, so excuse me. We've done quite a bit of development in Ionic and Cordova, that works nicely with Angular. There's Flutter as well. We built a few apps in Flutter. React Native. We've worked with one or two apps in that, but yeah, that's about it. We don't want to spread ourselves too wide. And I think that they're all good tools. They've all got benefits. They've all got slight disadvantages. So, there's not really one that we are preferencing over the others. Yeah, but there are others that we don't even use that people are using that, are good as well.
Well, we have, once again, hour has flown right by our time that we're hanging out here with you. So definitely want to I appreciate you hanging out and giving us some really cool stuff from all the way on the other side of the world, practically from us right now. But anybody else that's listening, I'm sure a lot of them are like, wow, this sounds like a great company. You guys maybe they're sitting there going, hey, I've got some app ideas or some web ideas that I would love to have somebody work on. What's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Yeah, they can come to our website, so www.elemental.agency, or they can look me up on LinkedIn. Yeah, that simple as that.
Excellent. So we will make sure we get links in the show notes for anybody that is interested. And we will go ahead and wrap this one up. And thank you for hanging out with us and sort of wandering through the desert or the forest or whatever it is, all of the snaggles of web and application development and tackling some of these latest questions and where we think things are going.
Thanks, Rob, for the invite. It was my pleasure. I enjoyed it. I think we tackled quite a lot of subjects in a really short period of time, but yeah, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you.
Definitely, very much so. It's one of those that we have more than filled everybody's time. I think well with a content heavy, content rich hour or couple episodes now of time. So thank you so much. Those of you guys that are listening, go out there and have yourself a great day, a great week, and we will talk to you next time. Now we have this video and audio, and so for the video side of it, we do like a bonus section a lot of time. And what would be, I think the best question we do for this is like, what would be your like one or two items of advice for somebody that is going to jump into this? Let's go with this one. Is trying to decide like, should I do a web app or a mobile application? Like, where should they start to figure out which one or whether they can, how to solve that problem if they're a non-technical founder?
Generally, we'd always say go web first. I think it's cheaper, it's easier to build, it's quicker to market, it's less costly. However, if all their competitors have got mobile apps and the user expects a mobile app, so say for example, I don't know, a property portal, and all the property portals have got mobile apps, and you come with a web app, the users are pretty much going to want a mobile app. I think then you got to go mobile, or if you need certain capabilities, as I mentioned earlier, from the hardware, the device, then I think going mobile app makes sense. But I think going web is, yeah, easier, quicker, cheaper. Get it out there, test it, and you can always evolve your product to a mobile app down the line.
So good. I agree very much. I've had a lot of those conversations with founders where they say, they start with, I want a mobile app. And then we start talking about it and it's like, there's really no business, need for the app. And then when you start talking about the price differences and the really the time frames, because even if you everything else equal, you're probably going to have to tack on a lot of times, at least 2 to 4 weeks just to get something into the stores between all of getting it out there, getting all that extra content out there, getting it approved, and like you said, like just the test cycles and the debugging cycles just tend to be a lot slower because you've got to compile and push stuff out versus web apps can a lot of times you can turn those suckers around almost instantly. You can, make some changes, go test it, fix it, and boom, you're on to the next one.
Yeah, exactly. Refresh the browser, and then
Yeah,
your changes are
exactly.
there.
That's the only problem. Sometimes you got to make sure you got to clear the cache, but that's about the that's the hardest part about it.
Yeah, exactly. Great.
All
Well,
right.
thanks.
Well, thank you so much for hanging out with us. This has been great. Really enjoyed the conversation, and we will get you. This will come out towards the end of January, probably closer, more like early February when this goes out. We'll get you links to these, and feel free to share them out wherever you would
Yeah,
like.
definitely. Okay.
And I guess, yeah, if nothing else, have a good Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and we will reach out to you again and talk to you again in the new year.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks a lot. I'll definitely syndicate it to my LinkedIn. Our company will also share it as well. And then it'll be great if we can rate ourselves on the Podmatch platform as well. Yeah,
Oh,
so
definitely.
give you guys a really good rating. I really enjoyed it. So thanks for your time again. All right.
All right.
Thank
Thanks a
you.
lot. Have a good one. Enjoy your
You
evening.
too. Thanks, guys. Okay, bye bye.
Take care.